Hey artists, how's it going? It's Monsterpawss. It's been a while since I've done a video like this where I'm just sitting down talking to the camera. How are you guys? How are you doing? How is your dog doing? You know I have to ask about your dog because I just love animals. So today I am doing my first impressions video ever. I was contacted by a company by the name of ChalkOla Arts and they asked me if I would like to try out their product. So I happily said yes, and they sent me 2 products to try out. They sent me a 16-pack of chalk markers and an 8-pack of jumbo chalk markers. So since I'm not very good at reviews, I decided I'm just gonna do a first impressions and see how I like them and see what I can make with them using my just limited knowledge of chalk markers. Back in my previous job, I was in charge of signage around my store that I worked at, and we used chalk markers to write on chalk signs that we put around the stores. But those chalk markers were horrid and streaky and runny and gross. They were not pigmented, but of course they weren't art chalk markers. I'm assuming that these are for art purposes. So we're gonna see how good they perform, how opaque they are, how smooth they are, if they're streaky or not. I am not being sponsored to say any good things about this product or the company. They just sent me this to try out. And I decided why not. So of course you guys are going to get my honest opinion. If I don't like these, well, you guys will find out. Because these are chalk markers, they're nothing like ink markers or Copic markers that you guys are used to seeing me using. These are completely different. They're chalk, but in a liquid form. I don't really know how it works, but it's like magic. It's witchcraft. So it says that these markers are best used on non-porous surfaces. Since I have a glass surface drafting table, I'm just going to be drawing directly on that. I'm excited to jump into these and see what they look like. So let's go over to my drafting table and swatch them and create some art. Let's see what we can do. It's probably going to look awful. I have no idea what I'm going to do with these, but that's the fun of it. If it turns out looking like a dick, I'm not gonna draw a dick, but God, could you imagine if I just, who played Jonah Hill? Did Jonah Hill play the guy in Superbad who drew a lot of dick, like just really detailed, veiny dicks in class? Unsubscribe, right down there, the button's right down there. You can just click it. Bye, I'm leaving. So here are the markers as they were sent to me. I got this big package right here, and then the smaller package came in this box right here. This is a 16 pack with 10 chalk pens and then 6 metallic chalk markers, and then these are like jumbo chalk markers. So I'm gonna just go ahead and look at these regular chalk markers right here and put these to the side. On the back of the box it says to shake well with the cap on upright for 30 seconds and then press on the tip to release the ink right and wash off with a wet cloth or Windex. All right, sounds easy enough. Let's open them up here. I did try the white one already, so the ink is already fed through to the nib. This is what they look like. It is a plastic marker. The barrel is plastic and it has a 5.5 millimeter bullet tip. So, you know, you can get pretty thick lines with these as well. I'm just gonna swatch it right here so you guys can see what it looks like. So right off the bat, it looks very pigmented and the ink flows very freely and it hasn't skipped at all. When I was working with chalk markers back when I worked retail, they were very streaky and you had to go over them multiple times, and after they dried on the surface, whatever surface you were drawing on, it was impossible to go back over a second time. So the fact that these aren't streaky and very opaque is already a plus. So I'm gonna go ahead and activate some of these other markers and we'll swatch them and see what they look like. This is what the tip looks like before the ink is fed through. In order to feed the ink, it says to shake it for 30 seconds with the cap upright. And then you open the cap and press down on the nib. So the nib is retractable, so when you push down on it, that is how the ink is fed through. After you've been pushing on it for a while, you can see the ink kind of start to come through the nib. After it's coming through, you don't really need to push on it very much because it would send more ink out. So I'm just gonna let this sit for a second, kind of upside down, and see how well the ink feeds through the nib. All right, so I gave it a few more pushes, and you can see that the ink is starting to come out. You guys, I am extremely impressed with these. This is actually really good. I'm confused. I took off the cap and it says on this marker that it's supposed to be a 5.5mm bullet tip, but this is a chisel tip, so I'm not sure if they offer other nib sizes or shapes. So I don't know, I got a chisel tip in this one, but that's fine with me because I prefer chisel tips over bullet tips anyway. Just by using this tip, I already like it more because I can make broad lines like this. With the bullet tip, it's kind of hard to do that. You only get kind of like two sizes. You get the thin size, and then you can push a little bit harder and get a little bit more of a thick line. These are the swatches for the 10 chalk markers that came in the 16 pack. Now I'm going to wipe these away and do the metallic markers and see just how metallic they are, because with my experience, metallic art supplies is never really very metallic unless it's like a gel pen or something like that. So opening them up, you get 6 markers, and there are no instructions on the back for these, but it says it's a 4.5mm bullet tip. So we'll see if we get any more chisel tips in this. This is the metallic series ChalkOla marker, and this is the silver color. Already right off the bat, you don't even have to shake these, and it looks like you don't need to push on the tip to release the ink. They're already ready to go. So right off the bat, my first impression is these are a little bit more streaky than the regular chalk markers, but I'm gonna let them dry and see what they look like after they're completely dried and matte. I just want to point out that this is what the nibs look like on the metallic markers, and this is the red marker. Haven't swatched it yet, but it's looking pretty silver to me, so I don't know about that. That is strange. It's red with like silver flakes in it. So it's kind of like a pink silver almost. Interesting. Here are the metallic colors. And as you can see, they're a little bit more streaky than the regular just matte colors. The blue one was probably the worst out of all of them, so I don't think I'm going to be using that one. But the gold and the silver were the best out of all of them, and then in terms of opacity, the red one was probably the best in opacity, but it's not very red. Now I'm going to swatch these jumbo ones and see if they are just as good as their smaller counterpart. These are the Platinum series. I'm just going to pull out the white one. I want to see if it's as opaque as its smaller counterpart. So these have the same instructions to shake upright for 30 seconds and push down on the nib to release the ink. And then you open the nib, and the nib is a flat chisel tip. Not sure what you would call these, but it's giant and it's flat and it's rectangular. So you could use this small side right here to get a sharp edge, a flat edge, or you could use it like this and get a giant broad line. Oh yeah, it's just as opaque as the other colors, which is great. So these could be used to draw on large surfaces if you have a large area that you need to cover. So here are the Platinum series swatches. and they are just as opaque as the smaller markers. However, whenever they're drying, if it'll focus, they kind of puddle. A few of the pigments puddled a little bit, which isn't like a giant con or anything, but this purple one right here just swatched beautifully, and there's hardly any puddling. Same with the orange one, it's puddling a little bit at the end right here, but nothing too big. The green one didn't really swatch all that well. It might have been because there was like just a shit ton of ink coming out of the nib. I think I pushed on it a little bit too much and released a little bit too much of the ink, so that is my fault, I think. The colors are beautiful and very opaque, and because these nibs are so much more big, they do take a little bit longer to dry than the smaller markers. Now I'm going to wipe these off, and I'm gonna try and create a small piece of art with these and see if you can get any blending done with these. They are water-based, so I'm not sure how well they're gonna blend. So right off the bat, I realized the first problem I was gonna have was sketching out my process. Obviously I'm drawing on glass, so I can't do a preliminary sketch and, you know, sketch out what I want to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I just kind of sketched out with a black chalk marker some general shapes, and it kind of just turned into a chick head thing. I don't know. Anyway, I think what I was going for was I wanted it to sort of look like her head was popping out of a sea of color, and for some reason I think I was zoned out during this entire process. It was actually really fun using these markers, and I ended up coloring the entire background instead of stopping halfway to create sort of a horizon line. So instead of it looking like water, it just looks like half of a head floating in a bunch of color, which isn't what I wanted, but I was also just too lazy to go back and erase half of the background. Another difficulty that I had was I did not account for the fact that it was going to be hard to do any kind of shading that was realistic, because once the ink dries, it's really hard to blend it. You have to blend everything while it's wet, and it just wasn't working. So I was trying to do some sort of shading for the eye, and it wasn't working, and I just decided to erase it and fill it in with just a flat coloring. And I decided to take the approach of sort of like I would do digital art, and do a flat color on the bottom, and then sort of try to build up color on top. And that didn't work either, because when you're working with a new medium, it just kind of takes a little trial and error to figure out how it works. So I decided I wanted to try to do highlights on the forehead and around the eyes using yellow, and it didn't work. So you'll see me later try to go and cover that back up. Overall, I really enjoyed how the markers blended in the background. I really love the effect that it has. If you're trying to do realistic shading, it's just not gonna work. I recommend, if you want to do any sort of shading, to do sort of like a cell shading style like I'm doing right now. That worked a lot better than trying to add soft shading to something that was already dry. So overall, I would have to say, kudos to you, ChalkOla, because these markers really surpassed my expectations because of my previous experiences with chalk markers being not so great. I didn't really have high hopes for these, but these A++. So if you guys would like to try out these markers, purchase some for yourself, I will leave a link in the description below where you can find these. And thank you to ChalkOla for letting me try your product. I hope to be getting more use out of these in the future, and maybe I can make some really awesome things with these, who knows. If you like this video and you'd like to see more first impressions, give me some suggestions down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Snapchat. All the links are in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe. We do art things. I will see you guys in the next video, and remember, don't quit your daydream.